the mirror of everything. How understanding reality, markets, and relationships reveals the same hidden truth. Introduction. The day the universe forgot itself. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, or maybe it was in the future, it's honestly hard to say, the universe forgot who it was. This just happens sometimes with universes. They doze off and can't remember their dreams, and when this particular universe couldn't remember itself, it became nothing. Who am I? Nothing asked. You are a mirror, answered a voice made of countless flecks of light. Who are you? The mirror asked. I am your reflection. And just like that, through this simple conversation between mirror and reflection, the world was born. Now, I know what you're thinking. Great. Another book that starts with cosmic poetry and ends with me visualizing abundance while drinking green juice. Stick with me. Because here's where this gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean profoundly practical. That mirror isn't just a cute metaphor, it's the operating system of reality itself. And here's the wild part. It works exactly the same way whether you're trying to give a woman an earth, shattering orgasm, predict whether the Japanese yen is about to collapse, or figure out why you keep losing money on trades you were sure would work. The world reflects what you project, always, in every domain, without exception. You project desperation in bed, the mirror reflects a partner who can't relax. You project confidence without attachment, the mirror reflects a partner who surrenders to pleasure. You project fear onto your trading account, the mirror reflects more losses. You project calm, probability-based thinking, the mirror reflects consistent profits. You project the belief that life is hard and people are against you. The mirror says, "As you wish, little sparrow, have it your way." This book is about all three mirrors, not because I couldn't decide what to write about, but because they're the same mirror. The principles that make you a great lover are identical to the principles that make you a great trader. The discipline that keeps you from chasing a losing stock is the same discipline that keeps you from chasing a woman who's pulling away. The awareness that lets you recognize a market bubble about to burst is the same awareness that lets you recognize when pendulums, those invisible energy structures that feed on your emotional reactions, are pulling your strings. I've spent years studying these seemingly separate domains: sexual health and technique, trading psychology, reality creation, and everywhere I looked, the same pattern emerged. The image comes first, then the reflection follows. Most people exhaust themselves trying to wrestle the reflection. They push against circumstances, fight with people, struggle against obstacles, try to force the market to go their way, try to force their partner to respond. But the reflection can't be changed by wrestling with it. You have to change the image, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional state, your energy. Then the reflection shifts naturally. This is what George Soros calls reflexivity in financial markets. It's what ancient masters understood about shaping reality. It's what every great lover knows about creating connection. The participant's perception shapes the very reality that perception is trying to measure. So here's what we're going to do together. We'll start with the fundamental operating manual for reality itself, how the mirror works, what pendulums are, and why excess importance is the hidden cause of most of your problems. Then we'll apply these principles to the two domains where men most desperately want to succeed, the bedroom and the bank account. Along the way, you might notice that the sex advice sounds suspiciously like trading advice, and the trading advice sounds like spiritual instruction. That's not a bug. That's the point. Everything connects. Everything reflects. And by the end of this, you'll understand why your trading journal and your relationship communication habits are solving the same problem in different costumes. One final note before we begin. You'll notice that sometimes I'll break into a trading metaphor while explaining oral sex technique. I'll compare market pendulums to the ones that control your love life. I'll suggest that your stop loss in a relationship looks remarkably like your stop loss in a trade. If this sounds absurd, good, it should. The most profound truths often wear the mask of the ridiculous. Let's begin. Part 1. The Mirror. How reality actually works. Chapter 1. The Dual Mirror. What we'll learn. Reality has two sides, the physical world you can touch, and the metaphysical field of infinite possibility that lies behind it. Understanding their relationship is the key to conscious creation. The world operates like a mirror, reflecting your deepest beliefs back to you as lived experience. This chapter introduces the model that explains everything from stock market crashes to why your partner seems to pull away when you get needy. The science-spirituality cage match. Nobody wins. Think about this. Science and spirituality have been arguing forever about what's real. Scientists point to matter, to particles, to measurable things. Mystics point to consciousness, to energy, to spirit. Who's right? Here's the fascinating answer. Both are. The world is a mirror that reflects whatever you believe about it. If you believe reality is made of solid particles operating according to mechanical laws, the world will show you abundant evidence of that. If you believe it's made of energy and consciousness and meaning, the world will confirm that too. The mirror agrees with everyone. This isn't some woo-woo nonsense. This is precisely what George Soros articulated in his theory of reflexivity. The idea that in situations with thinking participants, there's a two-way feedback loop between what people believe and what actually happens. The fundamentals that markets are supposed to reflect, they're shaped by the very beliefs of the people trying to measure them. The market isn't passively measuring reality, it's actively creating it. The same principle operates everywhere. In your relationships, in your career, in your self-image, in your trading account. Your perception doesn't just describe reality. It participates in creating it. The variance space. On the other side of this cosmic mirror lies what some traditions call the variance space. Imagine an infinite information field containing every possible scenario, every potential outcome, every script of every event that could ever unfold. It's like a cosmic library of all possibilities, past, present, and future, all existing simultaneously. When you dream at night, your consciousness travels through this space. When you have intuitive flashes or creative breakthroughs, you're accessing it. Even your memories aren't stored in your brain like files on a hard drive. Your brain just holds the address, the coordinates, pointing to where the actual information lives in the variance space. This is actually wonderful news. Why? Because it means the future isn't fixed. No fortune teller can truly predict your destiny with certainty because there are infinite versions of your future, and you get to choose, consciously or unconsciously, which one materializes. The challenge is that most people don't realize they're choosing. They're like dreamers who don't know they're dreaming, at the mercy of whatever nightmare or fantasy unfolds around them. But you can wake up. You can become lucid in the dream of life. And when you do, you gain access to what might be called outer intention, the ability to select from the variance space the reality you want to experience, rather than just pushing against the one you've got. The two kinds of intention. Here's a distinction that will save you years of frustration. Most people operate entirely through inner intention, the effort to push against the physical world directly. You want more money, so you work harder. You want a better relationship, so you try to change your partner. You want the market to go up, so you buy more. You want her to orgasm, so you lick faster and press harder. Inner intention has its place. It's necessary. You do need to take action in the physical world, but it's limited. You can only push so hard. You can only control so much. And beyond a certain point, the harder you push, the more resistance you encounter. This is why Soros says that markets are always wrong, in the sense that they operate with a prevailing bias. The collective inner intention of market participants pushing prices in one direction eventually creates conditions that make the trend unsustainable. The very act of pushing creates the conditions for reversal. Outer intention is different. It's the ability to select from the variance space the reality you want to experience. Instead of pushing against the mirror, you change the image you're projecting, and the mirror naturally reflects something different. Think of it this way. Inner intention is like trying to change your reflection by wrestling with the glass. You push and strain, but the reflection keeps showing the same thing, because you haven't changed what's standing in front of the mirror. Outer intention is changing yourself, your thoughts, your beliefs, your energetic state, your emotional broadcast, and then watching as the reflection naturally, effortlessly follows. This is not magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's the operational principle of how reality works when thinking, feeling participants are involved. Key takeaway: Reality is a mirror that reflects your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional state back to you as experiences. You are not a passive observer, but an active creator, whether you realize it or not. The question isn't whether you're shaping your reality, it's whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. Chapter 2, Excess Potential and Why Problems Persist. What we'll learn. When we assign too much importance to something, we create an energetic distortion called excess potential. The universe, seeking balance, sends balancing forces to correct the distortion, which is precisely why the things we're most attached to tend to slip away, and the things we most dread seem to find us. This principle explains everything from market crashes to romantic disasters. The physics of importance. Previously in this audiobook, we established that the world is a mirror, and a surprisingly literal one at that. Project desperation. Desperation looks back at you. Project calm confidence, and the world rearranges itself accordingly. Now let's add a crucial layer, the principle of excess potential. Here's how it works. Whenever you assign excessive significance to something, you create an energetic distortion. Imagine a flat plane, the balanced state. Now imagine pushing down on one spot, creating a deep indentation. That's excess potential. The surrounding energy rushes to fill the void and restore balance. And those balancing forces rarely arrive in a form you'd welcome. Think about it in trading terms, since we'll be going there. When everyone is bullish, when the prevailing bias has become so one-sided that no one can imagine a downturn, that's excess potential. The balancing forces are gathering, and when they arrive as a crash. Soros describes exactly this. Booms are slow and gradual, while busts are sudden and catastrophic. The excess potential builds up slowly, like water behind a dam. When the dam breaks, and it always does, all that stored energy releases at once. Now here's where it gets personal, because this doesn't just happen in markets. When you're desperate for a relationship to work out, when you've made this person responsible for your entire happiness, you create enormous excess potential around that relationship. The balancing forces then generate circumstances that push you apart. The very intensity of your attachment creates the conditions for loss. This is why the man who can't live without her usually ends up having to. When you're terrified of losing money in the market, when every tick down feels like a threat to your survival, you create excess potential around your position. The balancing forces then generate exactly the market move you were afraid of. You get stopped out at the worst possible moment. Classic. When you're obsessed with making a woman orgasm, when her climax has become a test of your masculinity rather than a shared experience, you create excess potential around the outcome. The balancing forces then ensure she can't relax enough to let it happen. Performance anxiety isn't a psychological flaw, it's energetic physics. You've made the outcome so important that the universe has no choice but to correct the distortion. The boomerang effect. Here's another way to understand this. Whatever energy you send into the world, mirror returns to you amplified. If you hate something, you pour your heart and mind into that hatred. You create a clear, sharp, emotionally charged image. That image stands before the mirror, and the mirror faithfully reflects it back. The reflection fills your reality with more of what you hate, which makes you hate it even more, which strengthens the image, which brings you more of it. You've experienced this. The co-worker who irritates you seems to appear everywhere. The behavior you can't stand in others keeps showing up in new people. The situation you desperately want to avoid somehow finds you anyway. The trader who can't afford another loss somehow keeps losing. This is why Soros can say that markets are always wrong, but their bias can validate itself for extended periods. The prevailing bias, whether bullish or bearish, shapes the reality it claims to measure. A negative bias creates negative outcomes that confirm the bias, until the excess potential becomes so extreme that the balancing forces arrive with a vengeance. And this is why a man who believes women don't find me attractive will interpret every ambiguous social signal as rejection. His belief shapes his behavior. He becomes withdrawn or desperate, which shapes women's responses. They become distant or uncomfortable, which confirms his belief. The mirror always agrees with you. It never argues. The pendulum problem. Now let's introduce another concept. Pendulums. These are energy information structures created by collective thought. They're not conscious in the way we are, but they behave like energetic parasites. They feed on conflict and emotional intensity, fear, outrage, desire, competition, drama. Political movements, corporations, religions, even sports teams, these are all pendulums. They exist because enough people direct their mental and emotional energy toward them. How do they survive? By hooking you. They find what you've made important and pull on it. They provoke you into reacting. When you get angry about politics, you're feeding a pendulum. When you get caught up in workplace drama, you're feeding a pendulum. When you obsess over what society thinks of you, you're feeding a pendulum. Soros identifies the same phenomenon in financial markets, though he doesn't use the term. The prevailing bias that drives market trends is a kind of pendulum. It feeds on the participation of trend followers. The longer the trend persists, the stronger the bias becomes and the more people get sucked in. Eventually, almost everyone is participating and there's no one left to join. That's when the trend reverses. The pendulum has consumed all available energy and begins to swing back. The pendulum of a bull market convinces you that prices can only go up. The pendulum of a bear market convinces you that everything is doomed. Both are feeding on your emotional energy. Both are reflecting back to you the collective belief, not objective reality. And here's the crucial insight. Pendulums have a primary rule. Do as I do. Conform. Follow the pattern. Fit the mold. They enforce this rule through rewards, approval, belonging, identity, and punishments, criticism, exclusion, doubt. But their goal is never your well-being, only your energy. Key takeaway: excess importance creates the problems you're trying to avoid. The things you cling to most desperately slip away. The things you fear most passionately find you. This isn't punishment, it's physics. Reduce importance, release attachment, and watch the obstacles dissolve on their own. Chapter 3. The boom-bust pattern of everything. What we'll learn. Financial markets, romantic relationships, and personal transformations all follow the same boom-bust pattern. An unrecognized trend, growing conviction, excessive valuation, and eventual reversal. Understanding this pattern helps you recognize where you are in any cycle and when it's time to exit gracefully rather than ride the wave into the rocks. The shape of every bubble. Soros developed a model of boom-bust sequences that applies remarkably well beyond financial markets. Once you learn to recognize it, you'll see it in your love life, your career moves, your emotional states. Everywhere humans chase shiny things. Let's walk through the stages. And as we do, notice how perfectly they describe not just a stock market bubble, but also that relationship you were sure was the one and the hot trading tip that was going to make you rich. Stage 1. The unrecognized trend. Something is changing in the underlying reality, but most people don't see it yet. The prevailing bias is still negative or neutral. In markets, this is when a new industry is forming, but investors are skeptical. In relationships, this is the early stage of attraction, where neither person has acknowledged what's happening, those electric glances across the room that could be something or nothing. In trading, this is the setup forming that nobody's talking about yet. Stage 2, the beginning of a self-reinforcing process. The trend is recognized. This changes perceptions, which changes behavior, which reinforces the trend. Rising prices attract buyers, which pushes prices higher. Mutual attraction leads to flirtation, which intensifies attraction. A small trading win builds confidence, which enables bigger, smarter positions. Stage 3, the successful test. The trend encounters doubt or resistance, but survives. This is a crucial moment. If the trend survives the test, conviction strengthens. The pullback finds support and resumes its advance. The first conflict in the relationship is resolved, and the couple emerges stronger. The first losing trade is handled with discipline, and faith in the system deepens. Stage 4. Growing conviction. The trend becomes widely accepted. The prevailing bias shifts from skepticism to belief. More participants join. The trend accelerates. Everyone knows this sector is the future. You're telling your friends they have to meet this person. Your trading journal shows nothing but green, and you start calculating when you can quit your job. Stage 5. The divergence from reality. Expectations exceed what's actually sustainable. The trend has become dependent on ever-increasing participation, but there are limits. The gap between perception and reality widens. Valuations detach from fundamentals. Idealization replaces genuine seeing. Overconfidence leads to position sizes that make no sense given actual risk. Stage 6. The climax and reversal. Something triggers recognition of the flaw. The prevailing bias shifts. The self-reinforcing process reverses direction. The crash. The devastating fight or breakup. The account, blowing loss that happens not because the market turned, but because you were positioned for a reality that never existed. Stage 7. The self. Reinforcing downside. The reversal feeds on itself. Fear replaces greed. Selling begets more selling. Withdrawal creates more withdrawal. Despair generates more reasons for despair. Now here's the key. This pattern is not inevitable. It can be aborted at any stage by external intervention, changing conditions, or, and this is where you come in, conscious awareness. The person who recognizes they're at stage 5 can reduce their exposure, have the honest conversation, or take profits before the reversal. The person who's sleepwalking through the cycle gets crushed. The conglomerate boom of the 1960s. Soros's classic example is the conglomerate boom of the late 1960s, and it's worth understanding because it's such a clean illustration. Investors started valuing growth in per-share earnings without discriminating about how that growth was achieved. A few companies learned to produce earnings growth through acquisitions, buying other companies using their own overvalued stock as currency. When the market rewarded them with higher stock prices, they could use their even more overvalued stock to acquire even more companies, generating even more earnings growth, justifying even higher stock prices. The process was self-reinforcing until it wasn't. Acquisitions had to get larger and larger to maintain the momentum. When a major acquisition was finally blocked, the spell was broken. Prices fell. The favorable impact of acquisitions on earnings diminished. Internal problems surfaced. The boom became a bust. What was the flaw in this process? The misconception that all earnings growth is created equal. Acquisitions can create the appearance of growth without creating real value. Eventually, reality catches up. Now think about the last relationship that burned hot and fast and then exploded. What was the appearance of growth that turned out not to be real? What fundamental incompatibility was ignored because the chemistry was so good? What acquisition, of shared interests or future plans, was actually just paper? And think about your trading. What thesis are you currently riding that has passed the successful test stage and is approaching growing conviction? Are you sizing up? Are you dismissing contrary evidence? Are you telling yourself this time is different? Key takeaway. Every boom-bust cycle follows the same pattern. Unrecognized trend, self-reinforcing process, successful test, growing conviction, divergence from reality, reversal, and self-reinforcing downside. Learn to recognize where you are in this cycle, in any domain, and you'll navigate life with far greater wisdom than those who mistake the boom for permanent reality. Chapter 4. The Pendulum's Game. What we'll learn: pendulums are energetic structures that feed on your emotional reactions. They control you by hooking your importance, finding what you care about and pulling on it until you react. Understanding how to recognize and neutralize pendulums is essential for maintaining your freedom, your energy, and your trading account balance. The Invisible Puppeteers. Previously on this journey through the mirror world, we introduced a cast of characters: the mirror itself, the variance space, excess potential, balancing forces, and something called pendulums. Today we're going deep on those pendulums, because they're the primary reason you keep doing things you later regret, in markets, in relationships, in life. Imagine an energy structure created by the collective thoughts of millions of people. It's not conscious in the way you are, but it has something like a survival instinct. It needs to keep generating the emotional energy it feeds on: conflict, drama, fear, outrage, desire, competition. And it has developed sophisticated strategies for provoking that energy from you. That's a pendulum. Every major institution, ideology, and cultural movement is a pendulum. Religions are pendulums, political parties are pendulums, corporations are pendulums. The market itself, when it starts trending, becomes a pendulum. The prevailing bias that Soros describes, the collective belief that drives prices far beyond any rational valuation, is a pendulum in full feeding mode. Pendulums aren't inherently evil. Many serve useful functions in society. The problem is that they operate according to their own survival logic, not your well-being. A pendulum's primary goal is to perpetuate itself by capturing and directing human attention and emotion. You are not its beneficiary. You are its food source. How pendulums hook you. Pendulums have a primary rule. Do as I do. Conform. Follow the pattern. Fit the mold. Be like everyone else. Want what everyone else wants. Fear what everyone else fears. They enforce this rule through a combination of rewards and punishments. Conform and you receive approval, belonging, and a sense of identity. Deviate and you receive criticism, exclusion, and doubt. The mechanism is elegant in its brutality, and almost no one sees it operating. When the market is in a raging bull trend, the pendulum makes you feel like a genius for being long. It rewards your participation with profits and the admiration of your peers. When you consider taking profits, or, heaven forbid, going short, the pendulum generates doubt. What if it keeps going up? Everyone else is making money. You'll look like an idiot. When the market turns, the same pendulum now feeds on your fear. It makes you feel like a fool for not selling earlier. It generates panic. It convinces you that the world is ending and you should sell everything. Then, when you've sold at the bottom, it starts the whole process over in the other direction. Soros describes this dynamic in currency markets with precision. The trend, following bias, becomes self-reinforcing until it can't be sustained. Those who fight the trend are progressively eliminated. In the end, only trend followers survive as active participants. There's nothing left to guide speculators but the market itself, and the market is dominated by trend followers. This is the pendulum at maximum strength, moments before the reversal. The abnormal response. So what do you do about this? If pendulums are everywhere and they're constantly trying to hook you, how do you maintain your sovereignty? The answer is both simple and profoundly difficult. Respond abnormally. Break the script. When a pendulum provokes you, it expects a specific reaction. Insult someone and they're supposed to get defensive or counter, attack. Bad news arrives and you're supposed to worry. The market crashes and you're supposed to panic. Your partner pulls away and you're supposed to cling harder. Your power lies in doing the opposite of what's expected, refusing to play the assigned role. When you're provoked, agree calmly instead of fighting. When bad news arrives, maintain your equilibrium instead of spiraling. When the market panics, get curious instead of following the herd. When she pulls away, give her space instead of grabbing tighter. Soros describes doing exactly this in his trading. When everyone was bearish on the dollar, he maintained a large short position not because he was certain the trend would continue, but because he recognized the prevailing bias and understood it could persist longer than most expected. He wasn't fighting the pendulum. He was surfing it consciously, always aware he might need to reverse direction instantly. When the pendulum finally shifted, he was ready to flip his position. This is the abnormal response. Not fighting the trend out of stubbornness, but not being controlled by it either. Staying aware, staying flexible, staying unattached enough to change your mind instantly when the evidence shifts. In relationships, the abnormal response is equally powerful. When she's upset, don't get defensive. Listen. When she's distant, don't chase. Give her space and focus on your own life. When she's testing your boundaries, don't get angry. Hold your frame with calm confidence. In reality creation, responding abnormally to pendulums is one of the most powerful techniques available. When life throws you a setback, instead of falling into despair or complaint, say to yourself, if it doesn't work out, even better. This isn't forced positivity. It's strategic refusal to feed the pendulum the emotional energy it craves. Key takeaway. Pendulums can only control you through your emotional reactions. Learn to respond abnormally, to break the expected script, and you reclaim the energy that was feeding them. In markets, in love, in life, the abnormal response is your declaration of independence. Part 2. The Mirror in the Bedroom. Chapter 5. She Comes First. The Biological Irony and Its Solution. What we'll learn, the single most important principle for sexual satisfaction is that she comes first, both literally and figuratively. Postponing your gratification isn't just polite, it's biologically necessary. The orgasm gap exists because we've built our entire model of sexuality around male arousal patterns. The solution is elegant in its simplicity. Reverse the sequence. Let her slower, building, more complex arousal be the focus first. Use the tools best suited to female pleasure. Once she's satisfied, move to intercourse with her body already primed, and watch how your own experience transforms when performance pressure dissolves. The mirror in the bedroom. A brief recap. So far, we've established that reality operates like a mirror, that excess importance creates the very problems we're trying to avoid, and that pendulums are constantly trying to hook our emotional reactions to feed themselves. Before we dive into the specifics of sexual mastery, let's connect these dots to what happens between the sheets. The bedroom is a mirror like everything else. When you project anxiety, your partner reflects anxiety. When you project genuine enjoyment and unhurried presence, she reflects relaxation and opening. The excess potential we discussed? It's the root of performance anxiety, making her orgasm so desperately important that the balancing forces ensure it can't happen. The pendulums? They're the cultural narratives about what real sex looks like, what real men do, how long you should last. They feed on your insecurity and keep you performing rather than connecting. Now let's get specific. The unfair biology of arousal. Here's an irony that runs through all of human sexuality. Men and women's genitals are formed from the exact same embryonic tissue, yet our processes of arousal couldn't be more different. Men are designed for efficiency. It doesn't take much to get us aroused. The process is straightforward, predictable, and usually brief. 3/4 of men are finished within a few minutes of starting. The pioneering sex researcher Alfred Kinsey found that 75% of men ejaculate within 2 minutes of penetration. Masters and Johnson called it ejaculatory inevitability. Once the train leaves the station, there's no stopping it. Women are different. As one writer observed, male sexuality requires nothing but the head and shaft of the penis. No other part of the body need be troubled, touched, undressed, or soiled. The male orgasm seems to burst almost from nowhere, infinitely more ready and willing than the female's. The female orgasm requires persistent stimulation, concentration, and relaxation. Her first climax is the most difficult to achieve. It requires an environment of safety and unhurried attention. Is it any surprise that researchers found 3/4 of men always have orgasms during sex, while less than 1/3 of women do? Let that sink in. More than 2 out of 3 women are consistently denied their climax during what we call sex. This is the orgasm gap, and it exists not because women are harder to please or less sexual, but because we've defined sex entirely around male arousal patterns. The male orgasm defines when sex begins and ends. The male orgasm is the signifying event. Her pleasure is treated as optional, nice if it happens, but not essential to the definition of the act. Now here's where the mirror principle applies with devastating precision. When you approach sex with a performance mindset, worrying about whether you'll last, whether you're hard enough, whether she's satisfied, you project anxiety. Her mirror reflects anxiety back. She can't relax because you can't relax. The excess potential around making her come creates the very conditions that prevent it. But when you shift to a pleasure mindset, genuinely curious about what feels good, unhurried, present, you project safety. Her mirror reflects safety. She relaxes. And relaxation is the physiological prerequisite for female orgasm. The elegant solution. The solution is beautifully simple. Reverse the sequence. Let her go first. When you commit to ensuring her orgasm before your own, several powerful shifts occur simultaneously. The pressure dissolves. You're no longer trying to hold back while simultaneously trying to please her. You can focus entirely on her experience, knowing your turn will come. This focus makes you a better lover, more attuned, more responsive, more present. Her body is primed. After orgasm, her genitals remain engorged with blood. Her system floods with oxytocin and other pleasure chemicals. She's now more sensitive, more lubricated, more responsive. Subsequent orgasms come more easily. And yes, most women can have multiple. Your orgasm improves. When you postpone gratification, the build-up intensifies. The shared experience of her pleasure heightens your arousal. Many men report their orgasms are significantly stronger after ensuring their partner's satisfaction first. The relationship deepens. There's something profoundly bonding about prioritizing your partner's pleasure. It communicates care, respect, and genuine investment in her experience. These feelings extend far beyond the bedroom. Consider the statistics. 82% of women say having their partners pleasure them orally is very satisfying. Only 68% rate intercourse as very satisfying. Women report reaching orgasm about 25% of the time during intercourse, but 81% of the time during oral sex. The message couldn't be clearer. When we focus on her pleasure first, specifically through oral stimulation, she climaxes far more reliably, and when she climaxes first, everything changes. Now here's where this connects to everything we've learned about the mirror. She comes first isn't just a technique, it's a declaration about what you believe you deserve and what you believe she deserves. It broadcasts, I am patient enough to wait, I am confident enough to give, I am skilled enough to deliver. Her pleasure matters as much as mine. The mirror receives this broadcast and reflects back exactly the reality it implies. Key takeaway. She comes first isn't just good manners, it's good biology and good mirror practice. By prioritizing her slower, building arousal and ensuring her orgasm before your own, you eliminate performance pressure, prime her body for enhanced pleasure, and broadcast an image of confidence that the mirror faithfully reflects back as mutual satisfaction. Chapter 6. The Art of Coreplay. What we'll learn. Oral sex isn't foreplay, it's coreplay, the most effective method for consistently bringing a woman to orgasm. This chapter provides a comprehensive guide to the techniques, stages, and philosophy of masterful cunnilingus. You'll learn the 6 stages from first kiss to orgasm, the specific techniques that work at each phase, and, most importantly, the inner state that makes it all possible. The tongue is mightier than the sword. Let's state this clearly. If you were going to paint a delicate watercolor landscape, would you use a soft, flexible brush or a thick, unwieldy roller? The tongue is the brush. The penis is the roller. This isn't to diminish intercourse. It has its place. But when it comes to the precise, persistent, rhythmic stimulation that reliably produces female orgasm, nothing matches the tongue. The tongue is under direct fine motor control. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't go soft. It doesn't have performance anxiety. It can be feather light or firm, broad or pointed, rhythmic or still. It's the most versatile sexual tool we possess. And here's the crucial advantage. When you're using your tongue, you don't have to worry about premature ejaculation or losing your erection. You can relax completely and focus entirely on her pleasure. This freedom from performance anxiety is exactly what the mirror principle prescribes. When you're not worried about your own performance, you stop creating the energetic distortion that causes problems. Your intention becomes clear and pure. Foreplay versus coreplay. Here's where most men go wrong, and it's worth examining because it reflects a broader mirror distortion. They treat cunnilingus as foreplay, something you do for a few minutes to warm her up before the real thing. This framing communicates on an energetic level that her pleasure is secondary, that oral sex is merely the appetizer before the main course of penetration. This is backwards in every sense. Cunnilingus is a complete act of lovemaking in itself. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It can, and often should, be the main event that brings her to orgasm. When you relegate it to foreplay, several problems cascade. You rush through it, never establishing the rhythm she needs. You're already thinking ahead to penetration. You treat it as a means to an end, rather than an experience to savor in itself. You communicate, wordlessly, that her pleasure is secondary, and you miss the opportunity to provide the consistent clitoral stimulation that most women need to climax. The shift is simple but profound. Cunnilingus isn't foreplay, it's coreplay. It is the core of the sexual experience, not the prelude to it. This is exactly the same shift that transforms a trader from someone who chases price action to someone who understands market structure. When you treat trading as a series of random bets, you're like someone who treats oral sex as random licking. When you understand the underlying structure, the arc of arousal, the stages of response, you become the market maker rather than the market taker. You're operating with understanding rather than hope. The 6 stages of coreplay. Great cunnilingus follows a predictable arc. Understanding this arc is essential because it tells you when to do what. Many men fail not because they're using the wrong techniques, but because they're using the right techniques at the wrong time. Stage 1, the first kiss. Your first contact with her vulva should be a slow, comprehensive lick from bottom to top, taking in the entire area, not just the clitoral head. Think of it as the first sip of an expensive wine. You don't gulp it. You let it breathe. You appreciate the bouquet. You savor. Follow this first lick with stillness. Let the sensation resonate. This communicates, I'm not in a rush. I appreciate all of you. I'm here for the full experience. Stage 2, establishing rhythm. Use a predictable pattern of long licks followed by a flat, still tongue. This make and break pattern builds trust. She knows what's coming next. She can sink into the sensation. Then gradually introduce halfway licks, strokes that stop before reaching the clitoral head. This creates anticipation. It makes the head seek out your tongue rather than the other way around. Stage 3, developing tension. Now bring your fingers into play, but not for thrusting. The goal is stimulation, not penetration. Insert a single finger and use a gentle come-hither motion against the front wall of her vagina, where the internal clitoral structures are. Coordinate this with your tongue strokes. The combination of external and internal stimulation is exponentially more powerful than either alone. Stage 4, escalation. As she approaches orgasm, the type of stimulation needs to shift from movement to pressure. Introduce the gum press. Curl your upper lip up and press your gum firmly against the area just above the clitoral head. Your tongue continues its work below, while your gum provides steady resistance above. She now has something firm to push against as the climax builds. Stage 5, pre-orgasm. This is not the time for creativity. This is the time for consistency. When she says don't stop, she means don't change anything. Not speed, not pressure, not position. Keep her legs as close together as possible to increase pelvic muscle tension. Become a steady, reliable presence. The mirror at this stage requires absolute clarity of intention. Stage 6, orgasm. Maintain steady pressure. Feel the contractions begin, rhythmic, involuntary pulses of her vaginal and anal muscles. Don't change anything. Once the contractions are underway, you can add tiny, light flicks of your tongue tip against the clitoral head, like adding exclamation points to a sentence already written. After the contractions subside, remove direct clitoral stimulation. The head will be hypersensitive and simply hold her. This is more play, the essential period after orgasm when connection deepens. The 3 assurances before any of this technique matters. She needs to feel 3 things. These are the mirror broadcasts that create the conditions for arousal. You genuinely enjoy this, not as a favor, not as a chore to be endured. You love going down on her. It turns you on as much as it turns her on. This must be communicated through sounds, words, and the unhurried quality of your attention. There's no rush. She has all the time in the world. You're not watching the clock. You're not trying to get it over with. You want to savor every moment. When she knows you're genuinely content to be there as long as it takes, she can relax into the experience. You love everything about her. Her scent, her taste, the way she looks, the sounds she makes, all of it. There's nothing about her body that you find off-putting or unpleasant. Many women carry anxiety about their genitals, how they look, how they smell, how they taste. Your genuine, communicated appreciation counters that anxiety. These assurances are the energetic foundation upon which everything else is built. Without them, technique is irrelevant. With them, even imperfect technique can produce remarkable results. Now, here's where the mirror principle becomes explicit. These 3 assurances are exactly what you must project toward any goal. You must genuinely enjoy the process, not just tolerate it in hope of a future payoff. You must be unhurried, not desperately watching for results. You must accept the present reality completely, not rejecting it in favor of what you wish it were. Whether you're going down on a woman, building a trading system, or creating your personal reality, the inner state is identical. Key takeaway. Masterful cunnilingus follows a predictable arc from first kiss to orgasm. Each stage requires different techniques, but the underlying principle never changes. Project genuine enjoyment, unhurried patience, and complete acceptance. The mirror reflects back exactly what you broadcast. Make sure you're broadcasting love, not performance anxiety. Chapter 7, The Owner's Manual, understanding and protecting your equipment. What we'll learn. Most men are surprisingly ignorant about how their own sexual equipment actually works. This chapter provides a clear, practical guide to male anatomy, explains the mechanics of erection, and offers essential maintenance protocols for lifelong sexual health. You'll learn why erectile dysfunction is often the first warning sign of cardiovascular disease, and how the same habits that protect your heart also protect your erections. The penis as early warning system. Previously, we explored the art of giving pleasure, using the mouth, hands, and mind in concert. But what about the equipment itself? What about the organ that, for better or worse, most men identify with their sexual identity? Here's something most men don't realize, and it could quite literally save your life. The penile artery is about half the diameter of your coronary arteries. When plaque begins to build up, the same process that leads to heart attacks, it restricts these smaller vessels first. Erection problems appear years before any cardiac symptoms. Doctors have a saying, ED doesn't just stand for erectile dysfunction, it also stands for early diagnosis. This means everything you do for your heart, you're also doing for your sex life. The man who exercises regularly, eats sensibly, and manages his stress isn't just extending his lifespan, he's extending what might be called his sex span. The same mirror principle applies. The state of your internal environment is reflected in the function of your external equipment. Consider the evidence. Research shows that men who got the equivalent of brisk walking for 30 minutes 4 days a week were 65% less likely to report sexual problems than those who did no exercise at all. 65%. That's not a marginal improvement. That's the gap between frustration and reliable fulfillment. When you work out, several things happen that directly affect your performance in bed. Cardiac output improves, meaning more blood flows more easily to where it needs to go. HDL cholesterol rises, essentially cleaning your arteries of plaque. Endorphins elevate mood and reduce stress. Multiple studies show that regular exercise combats depression nearly as effectively as medication, but without the sexual side effects that antidepressants frequently cause. And here's a finding that should make anyone over 30 sit up and take notice. A Harvard study of swimmers in their 40s and 60s found that those who exercised regularly reported sex lives comparable to people 20 years younger. Regular physical activity essentially knocked 2 decades off their sexual age. The weight factor. If you're carrying extra pounds, especially around your midsection, your sex life is paying the price. Obese men are 5 times more likely to suffer from erectile dysfunction than those at a healthy weight. Belly fat actively suppresses testosterone. It also literally covers the base of the penis, obscuring some of your length. Losing just 10 kilograms of abdominal fat can visually add about a centimeter to your apparent size. The encouraging news is that you don't need to reach some ideal weight to see benefits. Studies consistently show that losing just 10% of body weight leads to significant improvements in sexual enjoyment. For a 200-pound man, that's 20 pounds, achievable in a few months. The nutrition connection, what you put on your plate, directly affects what happens between the sheets. Men with total cholesterol above 250 milligrams per deciliter nearly double their risk of erectile dysfunction. High-fat meats, saturated fats, and trans fats suppress testosterone and lower libido. Replacing these with lean proteins, fresh produce, and whole grains increases both desire and stamina. And if fatherhood is in your future, your diet matters now. Foods rich in antioxidants, especially zinc, found in seeds, nuts, beans, and oysters, are essential for healthy sperm production and motility. The mindset that changes everything. All this information about exercise and diet is valuable, but it only works if you understand the deeper shift that needs to happen. Most men approach sex with what might be called a performance mindset. We worry about lasting long enough. We worry about staying hard. We monitor her reactions for signs of approval or disappointment. This anxiety creates a vicious cycle. The more we worry, the worse we perform, which creates more worry. This is exactly the same dynamic we see in trading. The trader who's desperate to recover a loss makes worse decisions and loses more. The trader who's attached to proving his analysis correct holds losers too long. The trader who's afraid to be wrong never enters positions at all. The alternative, in both domains, is a pleasure mindset. Instead of asking, am I doing this right, or is she close yet, you ask, what would feel good right now? Instead of, will this trade work, you ask, does this setup meet my criteria? If so, I take it. If not, I wait. The outcome of any single trade is irrelevant. This shift is liberating. It removes the pressure of performance and replaces it with curiosity. It transforms sex from a test you might fail into an exploration you get to enjoy. It transforms trading from an emotional roller coaster into a probability-based profession. Erection Protection Protocol. Let me give you a simple maintenance checklist. These aren't suggestions. They're the minimum effective dose for preserving erectile function into your later years. Exercise. 30 minutes of moderate activity most days. This is non-negotiable. Quit smoking. Nicotine constricts blood vessels. Smokers are twice as likely to experience erectile dysfunction. The damage is often reversible if you quit before 50. Drink moderately. A glass of wine can relax you and enhance arousal. A bottle will sabotage your erection. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It numbs sensation and impairs the nerve signals needed for erection. Manage stress. Chronic stress elevates cortisol and epinephrine, which damage blood vessels over time. Exercise, sleep, meditation, and social connection all help regulate stress hormones. Do Kegel exercises. Yes, these are for men too. The pubococcygeus muscle, the one you use to stop the flow of urine, plays a role in erection strength and ejaculatory control. Contract it for 5 to 10 seconds, release and repeat 10 times, 3 times daily. You can do them anywhere. Get enough sleep. Testosterone production peaks during sleep. Men who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night have significantly lower testosterone levels. Key takeaway: your penis is a barometer of your overall health. Erections depend on healthy blood vessels, balanced hormones, and a relaxed nervous system. Taking care of your body through exercise, nutrition, stress management, and adequate sleep is the best thing you can do for your sexual function, and as it happens, for every other domain of your life. Part 3. The Mirror in the Markets. Chapter 8. You versus you, the psychology of not blowing up your account. What we'll learn. Trading psychology isn't a supplement to technical analysis. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. The 4 internal enemies of every trader are anger, greed, attachment, and ego. Understanding them is the difference between consistent profitability and the slow bleed of the amateur. The real battlefield. Here's a truth that takes most traders years and many blown accounts to learn. Trading isn't you versus the market. It's you versus you. The market is just a mirror. It reflects back to you your own psychology, your own emotional patterns, your own unexamined beliefs about yourself and money. When you're angry, the market seems to punish you. When you're greedy, it takes everything. When you're fearful, opportunities pass you by. The market doesn't care about you, but it does reflect you with brutal accuracy. This is why technical analysis alone is never enough. If trading success were just about understanding charts and indicators, every chartered market technician would be wealthy. But they're not. The truly great traders come from every educational background imaginable. Their secret weapon isn't a better indicator or a more complex algorithm. It's that they've conquered their own minds, or at least learned to work with them rather than against them. The technical and fundamental aspects of markets can be learned in months. Understanding how your own mind operates? That can take a lifetime, or it can take the focused attention you're about to give it now. The 4 enemies. Ancient wisdom identifies 4 primary enemies of the mind that affect every domain of life, and trading makes them visible with particular clarity. Anger. In trading, anger shows up as frustration after a loss. Even though you intellectually know losses are part of the process, you still feel that heat rise inside you. And here's what happens next, and pay attention because this is where accounts get destroyed. That anger from your previous loss makes the next trade feel disproportionately significant. You start trading out of revenge. Your goal shifts from finding a good setup to recovering your previous loss as quickly as possible. You ignore your criteria. You size up. You enter impulsively. And in most cases, you end up losing even more. I've watched traders get so angry that they try to recover losses on the same day, as if the market won't open tomorrow. Some even act like individual stocks have memories, like that particular stock somehow owes them money and is obligated to pay it back. This is madness when viewed objectively, but in the grip of anger, it feels completely justified. The only way out is forgiveness, specifically forgiving yourself. Understanding that trading is a game of probability. You don't need to be right every single time. You just need to be right big and wrong small. Greed. If you can't control greed, consistent trading success will forever elude you. Notice how greed works in two opposite directions. When you have a profit, greed whispers, "Book it now. Take what you have before it disappears." So you exit early, only to watch the stock continue rising without you. But greed also works the other way. When you're sitting on a loss, greed says, "Hold on, don't sell. It'll come back eventually." So you hold and hold, hoping for recovery, while the loss grows larger and larger. The simple hack? As soon as you exit a position, whether at a profit or loss, remove that stock from your watch list immediately. There's absolutely no point in watching it. If it goes up, you'll regret selling. If it goes down, you might be tempted to jump back in under completely different conditions. Be happy with your profit instead of yearning for the extra profit you could have made. Attachment. This one is sneaky because it masquerades as thorough research. You study a company in great detail, maybe too much detail. You learn everything about the business, and somewhere along the way, you form an emotional attachment. This company becomes your company. You can't imagine ever selling it. The problem is that when you entered the trade, you had a clear exit plan, probably a technical stop-loss level or a specific condition that would invalidate your thesis. But when the stock approaches that level, you suddenly switch to fundamental analysis in your head. The company is sound. You tell yourself, it'll recover eventually. Maybe it will, but that's not the trade you planned. Deviating from your plan because you've grown attached to the position is a recipe for disaster. The wisdom here is ancient. Detachment, not indifference. You should care about doing good analysis, but attachment to any particular outcome or position is a liability. Ego. The market is a remarkable place for ego management. Most people enter with inflated egos. But after experiencing the cycles of ups and downs, and almost every successful trader has blown up at least one account before finding their footing, that ego tends to deflate naturally. You realize the stock market is an ocean, and you're just a tiny drop. Look at the truly great investors, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and others of their caliber. Notice how humble and down to earth they are. The more knowledge you gain about any subject, the less ego you should carry. There's a saying that in a war of egos, the loser always wins, because the one who needs to be right will eventually be wrong in a way that destroys them. The professional trader's mindset. What separates the professional from the amateur is not the quality of their analysis, but the quality of their mental framework. Here are 3 practical steps that make the difference. Write down your plan before taking the trade. This seems so simple that most people dismiss it, but there's power in putting pen to paper before you commit capital. You clarify your thinking. You create accountability. You establish criteria for both entry and exit. This written record becomes your anchor when emotions start swirling during the trade. Protect yourself from information overload. Today, information floods us from every direction. Business channels run 24/7. Analysts share opinions constantly on social media. The sheer volume is overwhelming. And here's the danger. All this information can confuse you and cause you to deviate from your carefully crafted plan. Smart traders don't watch business channels during market hours. They don't log into social media while trading. They focus exclusively on their own analysis, regardless of what the rest of the world is doing. Protecting your mental space is not weakness, it's strategic necessity. Embrace probability. This is a fundamental truth that transforms how you experience both wins and losses. Trading is a game of probabilities. The author has a saying, when we make a loss, we should not take it to our heart. When we make a profit, we should not take it to our mind. Both situations, winning and losing, can negatively impact your mental state and lead to irrational decisions going forward. The trade you're taking right now is just one of the next 1,000 trades you'll make. Don't get so emotionally invested in this single trade that you lose sleep if it doesn't work out perfectly. By reducing the importance of any one particular trade, you can operate with genuine ease and make much sounder decisions. This is exactly the same principle as reducing excess potential in your personal reality or reducing performance pressure in the bedroom. When something matters too much, it becomes harder, not easier to achieve. When you release the death grip, the outcome takes care of itself. Key takeaway: the market is a mirror that reflects your psychology with brutal precision. The four enemies, anger, greed, attachment, and ego, are the same forces that sabotage relationships and distort reality. Learn to recognize them, and you'll trade with the calm detachment of a professional rather than the emotional reactivity of the crowd. Chapter 9: The Three Monkeys and the Dopamine Trap. What we'll learn: why do traders keep trading even when they're consistently losing money? The answer lies in a famous experiment with three monkeys and the neurochemistry of dopamine. Understanding the variable reward mechanism that keeps you hooked is the first step toward breaking its grip on your decision-making. The experiment that explains your trading account. Let me tell you about an experiment. Three monkeys were given the same task to perform, but each was rewarded differently. The first monkey received a reward every time he completed the task. He quickly understood the pattern and kept going until exhaustion made him pause. The second monkey received no reward at all. He soon realized his efforts were yielding nothing and stopped completely. The third monkey, and this is where it gets interesting, was rewarded randomly. He got a reward on the first attempt, nothing on the second, something on the third, nothing on the fourth and fifth, then something on the sixth and seventh, then directly on the ninth. The rewards kept coming, but at completely unpredictable intervals. Since the monkey never knew when the next reward would arrive, he kept performing the task every single time. He maintained hope that eventually the reward would come. This random reward system drove him to continue until exhaustion, just like the first monkey, but he received far fewer rewards for all his effort. Now you've probably already made the connection. In trading, we also receive rewards at uncertain intervals. Sometimes we hit winning streaks, sometimes we suffer losing streaks, but the outcomes of individual trades are never guaranteed. This uncertain reward system keeps us coming back, trade after trade, driven by the hope that the next one will be a winner. There's a biological mechanism at work here involving dopamine. This is your brain's feel, good chemical, and it craves more of it constantly. Whenever those monkeys received a reward, or in our case, whenever we book a profit, dopamine floods through our system. Our brain essentially says, "I liked that. Give me more." This craving drives us to repeat the action, even when rewards come randomly. This explains something that might otherwise seem inexplicable. Traders who have blown up their entire account still keep trading. Some even borrow money from friends and family just to continue. They become so desperate for that next dopamine hit that rational decision-making goes out the window. The market structure itself reinforces this pattern. We know intellectually that we can't profit from every single trade. Yet emotionally, we still expect each trade we place to be a winner. Now here's the crucial connection to everything else we've discussed. This dopamine-driven behavior is exactly what pendulums exploit. The market pendulum feeds on your emotional reactions. Your excitement after a win, your despair after a loss, your desperate hope that the next trade will turn everything around. Every time you react, you feed the pendulum. And the pendulum, in turn, keeps you in the game longer than reason would dictate. The solution begins with awareness. When you recognize that your brain is literally craving a chemical reward, you can start making more conscious choices rather than acting on impulse. You can observe the craving without acting on it. You can remember that this trade is just one of 1,000, and that its outcome means nothing about your worth as a person, or even your skill as a trader. This is the same awareness that lets you step back from a relationship drama and recognize the pendulum at work. It's the same awareness that lets you catch yourself inflating importance and deliberately reduce it. In every domain, the first step is seeing the pattern. The second step is choosing a different response. Key takeaway: The market's random reward system hijacks your brain's dopamine pathways. Recognizing this biological trap is essential for trading with discipline rather than addiction. The same awareness that protects you from pendulums in life protects you from dopamine-driven decisions in the market. Chapter 10. The Three Salesmen. Why you keep your losers and sell your winners. What we'll learn. One of the most consistent and costly mistakes traders make is cutting winners short while letting losers run. A simple parable about three salesmen illustrates why we behave irrationally with our positions and how professional traders think differently. Reversing this single behavior pattern transforms results. A story about a shop. There was a shop that employed three salesmen. The first was a model employee. He spoke politely to every customer, attended carefully to their needs, and had a natural charm that made people want to buy from him. He had dramatically increased the shop's profits. He was, quite simply, the best salesperson the owner had ever employed. The second was decent enough, but lazy. He didn't go out of his way to be polite, but he wasn't rude either. Mostly, he just sat around idly. He wasn't helping the shop grow, but he wasn't causing any harm either. The owner kept him around thinking maybe someday he'd develop into something. The third was a disaster. Rude to customers, perpetually angry, completely lacking patience. He seemed ready to fight with everyone who walked through the door. Customers actively avoided him. He generated no profits and had driven away countless potential buyers. Everyone in the shop was miserable because of him. One day, due to declining sales, the owner had to let one salesman go. Who got fired? The third one. Obviously. There's no doubt about it. Now translate this to your trading account. Imagine you have 3 open positions. The first is giving you significant profits. Clear uptrend, strong indicators, exactly the kind of position you want. The second is hovering around break-even, not hurting you, not helping you. The third has been losing money since you bought it, draining capital from your account. In the shop story, the obvious choice was to fire the third salesman. But in trading, most people do the exact opposite. They hold on to the losing position, hoping it might recover someday. Meanwhile, they sell the winning position early, taking a small profit while the stock still has tremendous potential. Think about the logic of this. We keep the losers and discard the winners. We fire our best employees and keep the troublemakers on payroll. A successful trader reverses this equation completely. You need to be impatient with losing trades, cut them quickly before they do real damage. And you need extraordinary patience with winning trades, letting them run and compound over time. Treat your portfolio like that shop owner would treat his business. Nurture what's working, eliminate what's dragging you down. This sounds obvious when stated plainly, but in the heat of the moment, with dopamine and ego and hope all swirling, it's one of the hardest disciplines to maintain. And here's where it connects to everything else. This is exactly the same principle as don't chase the reflection, change the image. When you hold a loser, you're staring at the mirror saying, I don't like this reflection, but maybe if I keep staring at it, it'll change. It won't. Cut the loser. Turn your attention to the winning positions. Nurture what's working. This is the mirror principle applied to portfolio management. Key takeaway. Professional traders are ruthless with losses and patient with profits, exactly the opposite of how most people naturally behave. Cut your losers quickly and let your winners run. This is the trading equivalent of stopping the chase of a bad reflection and focusing on creating the image you actually want. Chapter 11. The Trading Journal, your personal mirror. What we'll learn. The trading journal is the most underrated tool in a trader's arsenal. It's also the most direct application of the mirror principle to your trading practice. By documenting every trade, entry, exit, reasoning, and emotional state, you create a reflection of yourself as a trader that reveals patterns you'd never notice otherwise. Your most valuable tool. Let me introduce you to something that might sound boring, but is actually transformative. The trading journal. A trading journal is simply a log where you record your trades. Nothing fancy. Nothing complicated, just consistent documentation of what you're doing and why. Despite its simplicity, this might be the single most effective tool for improving your trading skills. Why? Because a good trading journal serves 2 primary purposes. First, it helps you track your progress over time. What's working, what's not, and whether you're actually profitable or just remember the wins and forget the losses. Second, and this is even more valuable, it highlights the mistakes you keep making. The patterns you're too close to see in real time become glaringly obvious when recorded over weeks and months. This is the mirror principle in its purest form. Your journal is the mirror. It doesn't lie. It doesn't make excuses. It doesn't blame the market or the news or your broker. It simply reflects what you actually did, not what you thought you did, not what you intended to do, but what you actually executed in the moment. When you document your trades consistently, patterns emerge. Maybe you exit winners too early. Maybe you hold losers too long. Maybe you trade well in trending markets, but fall apart during consolidation. Maybe your best trades happen in the morning and your worst in the afternoon. Maybe you overtrade after a loss and undertrade after a win. Here's something fascinating. Once you identify these weaknesses and consciously avoid those failed trade setups, many traders immediately move into the break-even zone. Not losing money, not making money, just neutral. And from that stable foundation, real growth becomes possible. You've stopped bleeding. Now you can learn to thrive. How to create your journal. This is straightforward. Don't overcomplicate it. Pick something simple. A spreadsheet works perfectly. You could use an online journal platform if you prefer, but creating your own gives you complete control. For each trade, record the instrument name, entry date, entry reason why you took the trade, entry price, exit date, exit price, exit reason, your stop-loss level, and key learnings from the trade. That's it. Nothing fancy required. The crucial discipline. Log every trade immediately. Don't postpone this step. Record your trades while the details are fresh. If you wait until the end of the week, you'll forget important nuances about your thinking and emotions during the trade. Once you have somewhere between 25 and 100 trades recorded, compile the data and study it carefully. Where are you making mistakes? What patterns emerge? Then make a conscious effort to avoid those mistakes going forward. This is exactly the same process as examining your reflection in the world mirror and deciding to change the image. Your journal shows you the current reflection. Your changes in behavior change the image. The next set of journal entries shows you the new reflection. It's a feedback loop of continuous improvement. Key takeaway: your trading journal is the mirror that shows you exactly who you are as a trader, and that honest reflection is the foundation of all improvement. Treat it as seriously as you treat your positions. Part 4. The Mirror in Your Life. Chapter 12. The 78 Principles, a practical course in reality creation. What we'll learn. This extended chapter distills 78 daily principles for shaping your personal reality. Each day offers a specific practice for understanding the mirror, reducing excess importance, neutralizing pendulums, and creating the life you actually want. You can work through these principles one per day, or absorb them as a unified philosophy. Days 1 to 10. Awakening and Foundation Day 1. Awakening. You begin where all mastery begins, with awareness that you've been asleep. When you were born, you arrived with extraordinary perceptive abilities. You could sense things adults had forgotten how to perceive. Then the dreamers around you, parents, teachers, society, kept pointing at the physical world and saying, "This is what's real. This is what matters." Your attention became fixed on the material surface. Your magical awareness faded. You fell asleep. Wake up. Right here, right now. Become aware that you are the dreamer, and everything happening around you is part of a dream. But the dream no longer controls you. You've awakened within it, which means you can shape it. Several times throughout your day, pause and remind yourself, "I am awake. I am the one experiencing this. I have influence here." Day 2. Hacking the dream. Life is a game, a very elaborate, convincing, high-stakes game, but a game nonetheless. When you're mentally absorbed in it, taking everything so seriously that you can't see the bigger picture, you lose your power. So come down from the stage and take a seat in the audience. Observe the situation around you, your work, your relationships, your challenges, with the detachment of a theatre critic. Then walk back onto the stage and continue playing your role, but now you're playing it with awareness. You're both the actor and the audience member simultaneously. That tiny gap between stimulus and response is where your freedom lives. Day 3. Child of God. There's a small particle of the divine in every one of us. You are not separate from the creative force that animates all of existence. When you ask God for something, it's actually God asking something of God. The sun doesn't ask permission to shine. A flower doesn't beg to bloom. It simply blooms. This is the posture of the awakened creator. Don't ask, don't demand, don't strive. Shape your reality through conscious intention. Days 4-10. The mirror mechanics. You learn that stars are born when individuals dare to step out of line and be themselves. You understand that the world is exactly what you think of it, not what you hope it might become, but what you actually deeply believe it is. You discover that whatever energy you send out returns to you like a boomerang. Love, hatred, fear, confidence, it all comes back amplified. You stop chasing the reflection and start creating the image. You learn to put on rose-colored glasses and keep them on, deliberately focusing on beauty and magic. You clear out the mental clutter, the unfulfilled intentions, the outdated plans, the obligations you resent, freeing enormous reserves of creative energy, and you learn that action dissolves the excess potentials of importance, anxiety, and attachment. Movement is the antidote to stuckness. Days 11-20, Identity and Authenticity. Day 11, the paradox of confidence. To acquire confidence, you must first let go of your attachment to needing confidence. Insecurity is an overestimation of importance. You're insecure about a presentation because you've made the outcome terribly important. You're insecure in social situations because you've made others' opinions terribly important. When you release the need to appear any particular way, you gain everything. The mantra, I don't need confidence as a crutch. If nothing is of excessive importance, I have nothing to protect and nothing to prove. Day 12. Balance. Everything in life strives toward balance. Wherever there's excess energetic potential, balancing forces appear to eliminate it. When you're in balance, life flows smoothly. When you attribute excessive significance to something, whether a desired outcome or a feared possibility, you create an energetic bulge that the universe rushes to flatten. The solution isn't to push harder, it's to identify where you've gone over the top and release the excess weight. Day 13. The charismatic soul. Charisma isn't a gift to a lucky few. It's the natural radiance of a heart and mind in harmony. When a person genuinely accepts themselves, loves themselves, and does what they love doing, they radiate an inner light that others naturally gravitate toward. You don't have to try to be charismatic. It happens as a byproduct of alignment with your authentic path. Day 14. Love yourself. Let's be direct. If you don't love yourself, no one else will, and you'll never be truly happy. This isn't a platitude. It's a practical description of how the mirror operates. Any conflict between heart and mind reflects negatively on your appearance and character. But you are unique. There has never been anyone exactly like you, and there never will be again. When you reject yourself, you're rejecting something irreplaceable. Go inside. Accept yourself as you really are, not as you think you should be, but as you actually are, in all your messy, imperfect glory. Days 15-20. Path and purpose. You learn to make yourself your own goal, investing in your own development and care. You discover that faith transforms into knowledge through direct experience. You don't have to believe, you get to know based on what you observe. You eliminate guilt by stopping the habit of justifying yourself. You discover the paradox of self-worth. The more you try to prove it, the more you demonstrate its absence. You establish your own credo, your internal code, rather than drifting according to others' directions. And you learn to recognize your authentic path, the one that makes your soul sing and your mind eager, the one with heart. Days 21-40, Mastering the Mechanics. The next 20 principles take you deep into the practical mechanics of reality creation. You learn to declare your intention deliberately, rather than letting thoughts run on autopilot. You discover the difference between hoping, wishing, and genuinely resolving to have, and why the first two never work while the third always does. You learn to clean your physical and mental space with equal determination. You make celebration a habit rather than a rare occurrence. You stop wrestling with your circumstances and start changing the image from which they arise. You commit to the systematic visualization practice that actually shifts your position in the variance space toward your desired reality. You learn that the world doesn't respond to demands. It responds to the image you present. If you want respect, give respect. If you want love, give love. If you want cooperation, make others feel important. This isn't manipulation. It's the mirror principle in action. You stop reacting automatically like an oyster to every stimulus and start consciously choosing your response. You understand that the master doesn't force reality. The master allows it, moving themselves rather than trying to move the reflection. You break the pendulum's rule of conformity and claim the right to be original. You replace do as I do with allow yourself to be yourself and allow others to be different. You learn that every unbalanced emotion traces back to inflated importance, and you stop fighting the feeling. You reduce the importance that created it. You end the battle. The world is a mirror that battles back when you battle it, but meets you halfway when you release the struggle. When you view seemingly negative events in a positive light, if it doesn't work out, even better, you actually shift onto a more favorable life path. You adopt the dominant thought, my world takes care of me, as your permanent amalgam, the golden backing that colors everything in the mirror. You stop paddling against the current and learn to trust the natural flow of events. You do things the simplest way possible and remain open to unexpected developments. And you develop the habit of remembering, periodically waking up within the dream of everyday life, just as a lucid dreamer realizes they're dreaming and gains control. Days 41 to 60, advanced practice. You smash the stereotypes pendulums have programmed into you, beliefs about hard work, scarcity, and limitation. You recognize these as tools of control, not immutable truths. You learn to visualize not just the end goal, but the process itself, admiring and celebrating your work as it unfolds. You master the slide technique, the deliberate, systematic mental picture of your life as if your goal has already been achieved. Unlike idle daydreaming, systematic work with slides actually shifts your position in the variance space. You learn to move toward your goal the same way you go to the mailbox, with calm certainty that what you need is there waiting for you. You learn to recognize and walk through the doors that outer intention opens, even when they come disguised as setbacks or challenges. You release comparison, the root of all dependent relationships, and free yourself from the conflicts that comparison creates. You examine how pendulums lock your soul in a box of limitations and conventions. Your soul came for celebration, not suffering. You learn to break free. You adopt the 3 don'ts rule to avoid the pain of excessive idealism. Don't inflate importance, don't make idols of anyone, don't sugarcoat reality. You discover that unconditional love, giving freely without expectation, is the only love that creates the conditions for genuine mutual affection. You stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison is a trap that always positions someone as better and someone as worse, creating the polarization that balancing forces rush to correct. You celebrate your uniqueness as a source of power. You learn to let your heart choose freely, while trusting outer intention to handle the how. And you give yourself permission to desire greatly. The soul is not greedy when it asks for what it truly wants. Day 61-78, Mastery. The final principles bring everything together. You distinguish between borrowed goals, which always require self-persuasion and promise happiness in the future, and your true goal, which brings joy now. You actively seek your personal path, the one that turns life into a constant celebration. You hold steady course toward your goal, despite apparent lack of progress, like a boat keeping its compass needle fixed on the destination. You contrast the experience of living someone else's script, a prison sentence, versus following your personal goal, a celebration. You address pessimism by shifting from picking at problems to seeking solutions. You find inner support by understanding the game of pendulums. When you recognize that your struggles are often pendulum provocations, you can step back and observe rather than fall into fight or despair. You learn to balance intention with flexibility, becoming a wise observer who gently guides rather than rigidly controls. You break free from the soul's box and claim the luxury of being worthy of the best. And in the final days, you apply these principles to specific domains. Money, where you shift from thoughts of lack to thoughts of having. Your comfort zone, which you expand through consistent slide work until the extraordinary feels natural. Your allies, which you create from the inanimate world around you by treating objects with respect and affection. And finally, your own guardian angel, an energetic entity born of your belief and love that watches over you. Key takeaway: the 78 principles are not a philosophy to be studied, but a practice to be lived. Each day offers opportunities to apply what you've learned, to drop importance, to respond abnormally to pendulums, to run your goal slides, to allow rather than force. The master's path is not one of perfection, but of practice. You'll forget and remember. You'll fall back into old patterns and wake up again. This is natural. The habit of awareness builds slowly, then suddenly becomes your new normal. Conclusion: the unified mirror. We've covered an enormous amount of ground together. We've explored the anatomy of female pleasure and the psychology of trading. We've examined the mechanics of reality creation and the physiology of erections. We've learned to give oral sex like a master and to cut losses like a professional. We've discovered how pendulums control our behavior in markets, in relationships, and in life, and how responding abnormally breaks their grip. If all of this seems like a strange combination of topics, consider what they have in common. Every domain we've explored operates on the same fundamental principle. The world is a mirror that reflects what you project. In the bedroom, when you project anxiety about performance, the mirror reflects a partner who can't relax. When you project genuine enjoyment and unhurried presence, the mirror reflects a partner who opens to pleasure. The technique matters, but the inner state matters more. In the markets, when you project greed, fear, and attachment, the mirror reflects losses and frustration. When you project calm, probability-based thinking and disciplined execution, the mirror reflects consistent profitability over time. The analysis matters, but the psychology matters more. In your personal reality, when you project beliefs in scarcity, struggle, and limitation, the mirror reflects exactly those experiences. When you project abundance, ease, and possibility, the mirror reflects those instead. The specific goals matter, but the underlying image matters more. The thinking man's path is this: pay attention. Learn how the mirror works. Stop exhausting yourself trying to wrestle the reflection and start changing the image. Whether you're trying to give a woman an unforgettable orgasm, execute a profitable trade, or create a life worth living, the process is identical. Change what you're projecting, and the reflection changes in response. She comes first. Cut your losers. Drop importance. Allow yourself to be yourself. Allow others to be different. And watch as the mirror of the world reflects back a reality more beautiful than anything you could have planned. You have everything you need to be the person who can do this. The rest is practice.